and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me again. So, as we continue on season 2, today we are talking about college prep, or choosing a college, or choosing a career. When I think about it, I don't remember any clarity with it. What I remember is a lot of pressure to choose wisely, make it count. Don't waste the opportunity. You don't know when another one will come. But I don't know why that was. What I know is at that age, choosing a career felt very, very permanent. It was like I was signing a contract with my future self. And there was no negotiation, and you didn't have a chance to choose again. What was your experience like? I'd really like to know. What I don't remember anybody talking about was that this was a transition, or what was going to happen internally, because I'd never chosen a career before. I'd never been in a position where I'd be like, okay, what do I want to do in life? How do I want to be referred to in life? And many other things. Among those was a very, very clear expectation of having a label. I'll talk about labels later on. But this was a transition that no one talked about. Hi, I'm Lydia. On this channel, I share real stories and practical tools for navigating life's transitions. Because change is inevitable, we know that. But transition doesn't have to break us, and we will thrive. Alright, so back to the college prep. I don't think I was just choosing a course. I was trying to choose who I was going to become. That is what was made very, very clear. And that's a very heavy thing to put on a teenager. You think about it. Who are you going to become? I might have been 17 at the time, yes, Form 4. Yes. 83, 2000, that's... Yes, 17. I was 17 at the time. Life was in a very different place. But there was this pressure to choose who I was going to become for the rest of my life. And this was the only chance. And the college I went to meant everything. And education was up there in priority. I took it seriously, but this felt like a life and death situation. At 17. I'll repeat, that's a heavy thing to put on a teenager. What I remember back then and what I realize now that it's important is that college prep wasn't just about applications or grades. It was about identity. Who am I? What am I good at? What if I choose wrong? What if I disappoint people? Let's go to the identity part and the labels. Society, or at least where I grew up, was, and to a very large extent still is, obsessed with labels. Are you? Who are you? What do you do? That's why in many conversations when you meet people is, who are you or what do you do? That should determine your worth. You know, very rarely does someone ask you different questions from what do you do? Or how was your day, or how are you doing? Very typical questions. And that goes into how labels really go into determining our worth. And some conversations I've even had with some young people where they're trying to choose careers, and someone who is, their guardian, parent, whatever you want to name it, asks them, so when you study law, you become a lawyer. When you study engineering, you become an engineer. When you study accounting, you become an accountant. This thing that you want to study, what are you going to become? Or what are you going to be called? What are you going to be referred to as? So it means that we are so stuck on labels and how those labels define or determine our value or our worth in society. And it's time to change that. And I hope as you listen and as you find some of these videos, I'm trying also to help us change our mind shifts into who someone is not determined by what you refer to them as. And I'll talk about the other things later, but I have chosen a path of no labels intentionally. I don't live in a silo. I know I live in the context of a society, but I intentionally choose that labels are not the things I want to be focused on. Now, as we go back into college prep, I rarely hear us name the part. We talk about performance, we talk about acceptance letters, we talk about prestige, it's going to be a nice college. We talk about, but we don't talk about the quiet anxiety of someone redefining themselves. Can you imagine you were just Lydia or whatever name? I had a different name when I was younger, shorter. Those who know me from younger years refer to me with a different name. You just know yourself as that, and then suddenly you're being asked to choose a definition of you, a label of you. That is a big transition for you. The change is filling out those forms. I want to go to either Moore University, Kenyatta, Nairobi, whatever it is you're choosing. But the transition is inside, wrestling with who am I becoming? Who do I want to become? When I look back, I see that I was not confused. But it was a psychological shift without a language for it. And many of us did the same. We adjusted, we survived, we made it work. But if we had been supported differently, what if someone just said something different? What if someone just said, you don't have to decide your entire life right now. Careers evolve. You're allowed to grow beyond your first choice. Because in my entire life, I have pivoted careers 3 times. And I'm still just fine. Now as adults, and as parents, as mentors, as leaders, let's get to name these transitions for those within our care, those who look up to us. Let's remind our young people that career is not a life sentence. It is important, yes, but it's not a life sentence. It is a chapter. And identity is allowed to expand. Because without transition, that which goes inside of you, and a proper transition, change is just rearranging furniture. One of my favorite authors wrote that, because without transition, change is just rearranging furniture. You think about it. But when we support that transition, the internal shift that goes within that person, that's when growth really becomes sustainable. Told you my story. Some of the tools that I use to support some young people that I mentor is the inner compass process. Choosing a career path, or changing a career, or pivoting. This is not marketing for this book, by the way. I have used it myself and I found it very useful, and that's why I share it, because it helps someone to look inside, to find their strengths, to find their natural abilities, to find the things that will not be like work, but will earn them money as they do whatever they want to do. So the work doesn't become something that you do. It's not something that you have to do. It's just something that you do. It's a natural part of you. There are also other ways to find out. There's Clifton Strengths Finder, and there's many ways to find what your strengths are as you figure out what your career path is. So today's story was, just us figuring out how to support ourselves within those transitions and support other people as well. If this one resonated, subscribe and come back tomorrow, because I'm telling this journey in order. Remind you, one chapter at a time, and the next one might just be what you need most. See you soon.